the most common questions they hear is, do I need a COVID-19 test to fly? And the answer really depends on your destination.
More people like Corey and Mike, there we go, means more business. But right now, it also means more challenges. And here at Sidelines Bar and Grill, you can literally hold the evidence in your hand.
Stairs, which at one point connected a driveway to a backyard, are now just a charred memory of what used to be. How do you plan on gaining back the trust of those students and faculty while the university is in such a delicate state at the moment? If we look at an aerial view of the prescribed burn, this is what the Forest Service was waiting for, these strong northeasterly breezes to keep the smoke out of the Bend area. But it has to go somewhere.
If the city of Bend does activate one of those emergency snow zones, like the one here on Bond Street in downtown Bend, then cars like these would not be able to park here anymore for about a 12-hour window.
Which was named best performing small city 4 years in a row. That is, until this year, when it dropped all the way down from the top spot to number 13 on the list. And the reason might surprise you.
Bend Lapine Schools received enough grant money to buy 13 of these diesel fuel buses and 5 new propane buses. But the biggest change is right here.
1 acre foot is about 326,000 gallons of water, which is enough to cover about an acre of land, or an entire football field, about 1 foot deep. To beat the heat, Shorey says some of the food truck employees would come take breaks in here, in their walk-in beer cooler in the back of the house where it's only 40 degrees compared to triple-digit temperatures outside. I want to point out, look at the temperatures where we currently stand here across Central Oregon. 73 degrees in Redmond, 72 in both Bend and Prineville. That makes this our warmest day of the year so far, possibly working against fire crews, though. Our winds are coming out of the north, and as we know, the fire is burning just northeast of Bend, so it could be pushing that fire closer to us here in town. And then late at night, that snow returns when our temperatures get colder. Waking up on Thursday, we all have a chance for snow, albeit a smaller chance, about 20 to 30% across the region. The pandemic has kept many of you grounded for almost an entire year now, which is why some of you are getting the itch to take off once again. And while it does seem like travel restrictions are always on the fly, the Redmond Airport director says that's not actually the case.
There are some new things to the process, but overall there's not been massive changes that have occurred because of COVID.
All regulations at the Redmond Airport follow federal guidelines, so of course masks are required. Anytime you step onto airport property, you're wearing a mask or you're not flying at all. That's a nationwide mandate. Here in Oregon, anyone arriving from another state or country is encouraged but not required to quarantine for 14 days. One of the most common questions they hear is, do I need a COVID-19 test to fly? And the answer really depends on your destination. If you're flying to Hawaii, then yes, you do. But on other domestic flights, you likely won't need one because most states don't require a negative result. Several states, though, do ask you to fill out a travel health form on your phone upon arrival or quarantine for 10 to 14 days. But that's not up to the airport, so Zach Bass says you should check in with each individual state or airline to find out what's expected. If you're headed to the U.S. on an international flight, then you must have a negative COVID test before you enter the country.
Safe travels.
Thank you. Finally, what's up with that real ID? Well, here's what you need to know. A real ID and a standard ID will both be valid for driving privileges and identification purposes, but come October 1st, you'll only be allowed on domestic flights using a real ID. It's no secret the aviation industry has been hit hard by the pandemic, but Bass says they are excited to have people strapping into their seatbelts once again, in a safe manner, of course. In Redmond, Max Goldwasser, News Channel 21.
We find ourselves in an unprecedented public health crisis, a rapidly evolving global pandemic.
Preventing the spread of the coronavirus, and that would be by closing our school.
For sale by owner. This is not a typical sign you see in Redmond's downtown area, but more of these signs are being posted.
The mental well-being of our young people, the suicide rates, the anxiety, the depression that's rampant.
Carry out and delivery only with no on-site consumption.
Not only know that this is real and kind of help deal with the shock that we talked about, but also that I'm not alone.
Most of us have never experienced anything like this.
It was like going over to a switch on a wall and just flipping it.
Well, hi, Jane. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good.
It's been a year since the shutdown transformed the world we live in. But at the Deschutes County Stabilization Center, this world is all they've known.
It has been a challenge for all of us.
The facility opened in June to help anyone going through a mental health crisis.
So what did that look like when you tried?
In just 9 months, they've seen more than 1,100 people and 100 children, some of them citing the pandemic as a partial reason for seeking help.
It is definitely a prevalent theme that we hear, regularly.
And it's affecting their work, too. Follow-up therapy sessions are done almost exclusively online.
That's great.
Making it hard for them to connect with their clients at a time when their job is as crucial as ever. Still, their presence has been felt.
Give yourself credit for that.
At one point, the Stabilization Center was the only county building open.
We've had at least 10 people say that if we weren't open, that they would have ended their life that day.
These are trying times. Trying because the past year has been incredibly difficult. And trying because people have experimented with new ways to stay in business. That stands true for the folks at the Stabilization Center, as well as for Ray Soley, the executive director at the Tower Theater.
We were the first people to close and to take the hit. We will probably be among the last people to get to a sense of this is similar to the way it was in 2019.
Soley says the Tower Theater typically welcomes 65,000 people and hosts 220 events a year. And before the pandemic, they were on pace for their most successful year ever. Since the shutdown, though, those numbers have dropped by nearly 80%. Causing the theater to lose about $800,000 in revenue.
When the rule comes down that you can't be indoors with large gatherings of people, that is the definition of theater and of live performances.
So as part of the creative community, they decided to get, creative. For the first time, they began offering live streams of local and international performances, exposing the public to new shows that would never have existed in Central Oregon.
We're going to be hosting this year's virtual band a cappella festival.
We kept saying that although we may be closed, we're not dark.
Even after the pandemic ends, Soley says they'll continue to use live streams as a way to enhance the audience experience with behind-the-scenes content before and after shows.
Places.
Thank you, places.
Other permanent changes will include digital playbills and menus, showing that in some cases, the new normal is exactly that, the new normal.
Blend some of those things that are new to us because of protocols and pandemic with what we used to do.
Other businesses can say the same. Wild Rose, a Thai restaurant in downtown Bend, will continue its curbside pickup service as long as the city allows it. And owner Rosie Westland says they're launching a new online ordering and reservation system. Two different industries, both trying to endure the pain of a pandemic and trying out new features that may have never made an appearance before, but will now stick forever. In Bend, Max Goldwasser, News Channel 21.
Well, if you've made it to this point, clearly you saw something you're interested in, so why don't you go ahead and reach out. Email is right here. Again, maxg.onair@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you soon.